Hi, y'all. My name is Ben. I live in Miami, Florida, and I'm interested in philosophy. I'm the founder of a reading group called the Miami Philosophy Readers. You can find us on meetup.com if you're interested in attending a live meeting if you're in the Miami area. Um, anyway, I wanted to start this video in order to just kind of share what I'm currently reading and hopefully meet others or connect with others who are interested in these topics, either online or also in Miami, or people that happen to be visiting Miami. Um, so I just started tonight Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. This is an abridged version, translated and abridged by Eric Watkins. And so I briefly just kind of read the introduction recently and some of the commentaries on the translation and the choices he was making as he was translating, and then got into Kant's introduction from the first edition. Maybe it was the second. Yeah, from the first edition, and so I just kind of had some brief thoughts about that and wanted to share them with you. So let me get to that in the book. Okay, so he begins with this. The preface begins with this interesting statement. He says, "Human reason has a peculiar fate, and one kind of its cognition. It is troubled by questions that it cannot dismiss, because they are posed to it by the nature of reason itself, but that it also cannot answer, because they surpass human reason's every ability." And so I thought this was a really interesting idea that of course, that we human beings have this capacity to reason, but our very capacity of reason puts before us a certain kind of challenge. And he's not clear yet on what that challenge is, but I think what he's getting at, or eventually gets at, is that we, through kind of our process of thinking and engaging about the world, we end up reaching certain contradictions in our thought that have become impossible for us to resolve. And so he calls these kind of abstractions, these kind of thoughts that we've arrived at that are more abstract, he calls them metaphysics, right? And so, traditionally metaphysics has been just any kind of concept that goes beyond the pure material or the physical world into something that's more speculative about the nature of reality, about the nature of the universe, about the nature of being, right? So that whole idea of metaphysics has a long history. You could talk about Aristotle's metaphysics. You could talk about the first philosophers like Thales and Anaximander, and them trying to get at some type of foundational principle about what it is that grounds the nature of reality. And so that gets us into metaphysics. But in particular, it seems to me that, and what I've read elsewhere, is that Kant is interested in the fact that in his time, in the late 1700s, that metaphysics has arrived at certain contradictions or certain puzzles that it's not able to resolve. And so he doesn't clearly lay out all those kind of unresolvable questions, but I think that I could point to some from kind of my previous understanding of philosophy and my understanding that he's interested in Hume and responding to Hume. He says Hume woke him from his dogmatic slumber. Kant says that Hume woke him from his dogmatic slumber regarding certain assumptions that he was making. And so one thing that Hume is important for in philosophy is critiquing our idea of causality, right? Hume brings up the problem of induction, and after you read Hume, you arrive at this sense or this understanding that I make claims about how something causes something else, but we can't really know if that's the nature of reality or if that's more the nature of human understanding and the way that the mind puts different ideas together, puts different experiences together, and then creates a narrative about those ideas, creates a relationship between those ideas. And so Hume really introduces this huge problem to Western thought, to Western empiricism, this idea that I learned from the senses, by disrupting this idea of causality. And so I imagine that would be kind of a metaphysical thing, like, whether our concepts can actually say anything about the nature of reality. And so reason has brought us to this point. Our process of reasoning has brought us to this point. And so he has some other quotes that I wanted to explore. He says that reason starts from principles that it cannot avoid using in the course of experience, and that this experience at that time sufficiently justifies it in using. By means of these principles, our reasons, and indeed its nature requires it to do, ascends ever higher to more remote conditions, right? And so as it's kind of ascending higher from just kind of raw experience, our process of thinking becomes more abstract, and we end up running against certain kind of contradictions in thought that we're unable to resolve, right? And he says that reason plunges into the darkness of these contradictions. And he says the combat arena of these endless conflicts we call metaphysics. So I really just found this interesting that Hume is kind of presenting this problem that in general we have a certain logic that we use to navigate the world and think about the world, and those concepts seem to make sense. But as we abstract from those things and develop more complicated concepts, more abstract concepts, we end up arriving at contradictions that we're unable to resolve. And so what he really wants to do is come along and in this providing a critique of reason, of pure reason, of reason kind of in itself, not knowledge of the world, but our capacity of the mind to reason, is that he wants to arrive at some type of firm foundation, some type of way that we can arrive at an understanding that doesn't just fall into contradictions that are irresolvable.